don't want to forget to do that. So yeah, we right now it's kind of easy to come here and do this. First couple of weeks, I broadcast, if you will, for lack of a better term, from my office in Broward County Schools. But yeah, it's interesting when I teach these courses to kind of reflect on myself and my colleagues and everything like that. So, well, we'll go ahead and get started, Rona. I'm glad you're with me today. We're going to go through. Obviously, we can't go through every single thing, but there are some points I want to hit on that I think are key. I think I mentioned to someone. In fact, I'm sure I mentioned to at least one person that job satisfaction is a real passion of mine, a very, very large interest in job satisfaction. My dissertation for my PhD deals with job satisfaction. And what I looked at was job satisfaction for elementary school teachers, classroom teachers, as it relates to class size. So the sort of underlying unsaid part of that is what I really like is when you boil everything down is relationships. And that plays a big part in job satisfaction that isn't, spoken of in the text or in our reading, directly, but it is a big part of employee satisfaction, the kind of relationships that you have with your colleagues, with your customers, and with your subordinates, and with your supervisor. So what does that exactly mean? What does a good relationship look like? Well, there's proper boundaries set up so that you know exactly what you can and can't do with your subordinates, as well as your supervisors and your customers, as well as colleagues, so that the boundaries are adhered to and they're clear and they make sense. So that's one thing right there. And another is this idea of collegiality. Are we actually looking out for each other's best interest? Are we trying to, the opposite of, or the far-reaching thing that is not collegiality is gossiping, undermining someone. So collegiality means to support your colleagues, your fellow workers, and do favors for them and expect them to do favors for you. That's appropriate. Goes back to those boundary things. So it is, and the reason, again, with the dissertation, you narrow everything down. So, but you then once that's done, you expand from it. So why is job satisfaction important? Why would it matter to a manager? What his employees think. Do they enjoy their job? What are you, based on your personal experience, Rona, and what you've picked up from this course, why do you think that a manager should be concerned with the job satisfaction of his employees?
Well, from a personal standpoint, it helps to motivate your employees, and they want to do their best when they're satisfied. And that's where you get that cohesiveness with your other coworkers. So if I'm satisfied with what I do, then I'm concerned with the satisfaction of others. So then I want to help others become more satisfied with what they're doing. I believe that I've always thought that a happy person is happy in everything that they do. Because for me, I'm a very spiritual person. I get up and I pray in the morning and I put on my armor of God so that when I go out into the world, people don't affect me like they may affect others. So my happiness and my contentment is not based on any worldly environment or person. So with that being said, it is very relevant to how productive you are, whether you show up to work on time, whether you're always finding an excuse to leave early or not coming at all. It has to do with the morale of other people. So if I'm satisfied, then I'm not going to grope and moan and groan. I would be more apt to say, hey, if I heard someone else, having an issue, what's going on, maybe I can help you or get some clarity to reduce that tension in the workplace. employees.
So Rona, what you said makes a lot of sort of it has face validity, makes logical sense, because it's common sense. Like, well, if I like my job, I'm going to do better at it. What's interesting though is, psychology is not always common sense.
Right.
The research shows that job satisfaction has a weak correlation to productivity for the individual. Now, stay with me because this gets a little bit deep. So up until just a few years ago, and interestingly enough, when I did my study, everything I looked at in terms of job satisfaction and worker productivity, there was not a strong correlation. There were people who were very satisfied with their jobs who weren't very productive. And when you look at that a little bit, you can kind of say, well, yeah, this guy likes his job because they're not asking him to do much. He doesn't have to do much, so he likes his job. I'll give you an example. One of the things that I've done in my education career, for a period of time, I taught GED, which is, and I'm not sure if they have it other places, but in Florida, I think it's nationwide anyway. It stands for General Equivalency Diploma. So it means for kids who dropped out of school or never finished high school, they were allowed to come back and study for a test, and if they could pass this test, they would get an equivalent of a high school diploma. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best jobs I ever had, and I enjoyed it. And by the time I left, I had built up a pretty good clientele or student body, if you will. I worked for Palm Beach County Schools at the time, but for the first, it was in a very low socioeconomic area. Not a lot of students were there. So I'd have 3 or 4 or 5 students the entire night. They would come in, they would do their work, and then they would kind of go. These are people who came from, working a day job and whatever have you. I was there for them, and I encouraged them and everything like that. But there really wasn't, in terms of productivity, I really wasn't producing a lot. And those products would be in terms of like teaching, because there wasn't that many people that came in. Eventually, the word got out and people started coming in, and I built it up a little bit. But for a long time there, yeah, if we were to take a measure of my job satisfaction, it would have been very, very high. When you look at, okay, what is this guy really, contributing, as much as I could, given what I have, but it really, in the bottom line, wasn't that much. So there's a lot of other examples for that. Now, your point, though, it makes sense, and I do agree that on this end especially. And one thing that I started looking at in my dissertation, because I kept running into that, it didn't make sense to me. If employees satisfied with their job, they're going to work hard, they're going to produce more. And in essence, you can make the argument that I did because I brought in more people in my one little case example there. But what people started looking at after I think I put it out there, I don't know if that's true or not, but the organization is going to be more productive overall if employees in general, the large number of them, have job satisfaction because of what you said, because you're going to have less absenteeism, for one. You're going to, as you said, support each other, too. So it is important for an organization to want to build up job satisfaction, not necessarily for the individual, but for the overall organization, which you did hit right on the money there. And there is, that makes common sense, like we said, that face validity, and there's also data to support that. A lot of data. I'll give you another example. For Broward schools, one of the things that we look at in my school and most schools, and you can imagine if you went through public schools, and I know you got kids in public schools or have had kids in public school, one of the detractors of a good public education is when you have a substitute teacher. Some are very good, but in general, substitutes, they're just placeholders. They really can't continue the lesson the teacher had. The kids don't engage with them nearly enough. So one of the things that we do when we get there in the morning is see, okay, where are hotspots? Who's out? Who's got a sub today? Or who has, maybe they're out and they couldn't get a sub to come in, perhaps. Okay, so we got to split that class in some cases. So overall, our production as a school is based on our overall scores, which is a whole other topic. that I won't get into. But schools that have a lot of employees that don't have high job satisfaction call out more. Schools who have, the teachers are very satisfied with their jobs. They'll come in if they got a cold, or they will make their appointments around their work schedule. Where somebody else might say, "Look, I got to go to the doctor. I'm gonna make my appointment at 11 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just taking the whole day. By the time I drive there and get back, so I'm just taking the whole day." So job satisfaction is absolutely key, and there are things that employers can do to elevate job satisfaction. And I'll also say that actually helps employees' overall life satisfaction as well. Not just because their job satisfaction is higher, but they tend to generalize that. It's a big leap. It's not easy, but it can be done. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I also think about, for me, I have to be challenged. I don't like to become complacent.
Right.
And you can be on a job so long that you become content and complacent. So at that point, you're only doing the minimum to, keep your job and to get your paycheck at the end of the week.
Right.
So I think if you're in an environment that's inviting and is it's inclusive, and that is challenging, you have to break up the monotony, and give somebody something to work towards, So for me, that's what works. And I think that you're not having your people become complacent and content will keep productivity rising, and not at a stagnation.
Right. Right. You're right on the money with that, and any organizational psychologist worth his weight would completely agree with you. Now, and there's evidence for that. Now I'm gonna share with you. We talked a little bit about at some point the three things that do keep employees engaged, because one of the things that job satisfaction will do, which is not exactly job satisfaction, but the ultimate goal is not job satisfaction. It's a part of the goal. The ultimate goal is now the term that we're using out there now in the workspace and things like that is employee engagement. You see that come up again and again and again. There are folks who go around doing workshops to build, motivation and productivity. The key term that is used in just about every person's speech and in the literature is employee engagement. So how do you keep employees engaged, which is kind of what you're talking about? This is what you're talking about. There's three things: purpose, mastery, and autonomy. So you talk about being challenged, you got to have a purpose. You gotta feel like, okay, I'm doing something bigger than myself here. I'm doing something that's contributing to society in some fashion. Next is mastery. So you want to have something that you're shooting for, that you want to get better at, and you want to get better at. And then when you sort of reach that goal, you want another challenge. So that's the mastery, getting better and better and better, to the point where maybe now you're teaching others and bringing them along as well. And then the third thing is autonomy, which kind of flies in the face of traditional management. Managers want to manage, they want to make decisions, they want to direct people, they want to tell you, you go sit there and type this up, or you go stand over there and talk to those people. But what keeps people engaged is the freedom, the autonomy to pursue the purpose that they have for that organization. And if you can give them that, you don't need to manage in the traditional sense anymore. You need to check on them. You need to make sure. You need to reinforce their desired behaviors, which is a lot less stressful, a lot easier to do than it is to say, okay, you stand there for 5 minutes, then come over here and sit for 5 minutes. That's exhausting. So you're on the target there. I just wanted to, this correlates with job satisfaction here. It says, why worry about employee attitudes? Here we got absenteeism. I mentioned that already. Turnover is another one that I didn't mention, but is very important, because if employees are not satisfied in their work, they'll leave. They will just, and that that's problematic, because now you have to go hire someone else. It costs a lot of money for ads, take the time off, get the background check, and all those kinds of things. The other thing is, besides being absent, taking the day off, is being late. It's not really engaging. Like I said, it's employee engagement is what we're shooting for. And feeling like they're part of the owner of the organization. So that's very important there.
My grandmother used to say, 15 minutes before time is on time, and on time is late.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that before, and that's how I almost have to be. If I try and show up on time, I end up being late. I can't time it right. So
you have to
early.
You have to get yourself settled, and all of that. So when that clock starts running, you should be ready.
Yep. Let me go back over here. This is okay. These five, you can see the screen. These five concepts are what we call the big five trait theory or big personality theory. It has been for a long time, and again, in the past probably couple of years, there's been some challenges to this. But these were the personality traits that they used to say, and I even challenged it before. They would say determine someone's success and happiness in life: openness, conscientiousness, being aware of, acting on purpose, acting with intentionality, extroversion, and I'd always had a problem with this one. Extroversion is, that's not necessarily the boisterous person, but that's the person who gathers their energy, if you will, from other people. Misconception between extroversion and introversion. People tend to think introverted people are shy or don't have social skills. That is not what introversion is. Anybody can be shy. Anyone can lack social skills. But introversion, what it means is we draw our energy from within. So we draw our energy reflecting on what somebody said at a meeting, or what interaction these two people had during lunch, or whatever have you. But there's been a little bit of pushback, a lot from introversion with this big five personality trait theory. With that, saying the leaders don't have to be extroverts. You need good social skills, but you don't have to be an extrovert. And agreeableness, like how are you able to resolve differences between you and your colleagues? That one I definitely stand behind that. In the definition, especially, are you able to see the best in other people and not presume that if they present an idea that's contrary to yours, that they're attacking you? And you say, okay, why would you think we can solve the problem that way? I never considered that. So let me hear what you have to say. That's an example of agreeableness. And then stability. I mean, that goes across a lot of areas. Stability with the job, stability, emotional stability, really, I guess, if you were going to try and put a digest version on that. Are they, I don't know, people who, some other places who you're never quite sure, what side of the bed they got up on. Like we used to say back in the old days, right? You got up on the wrong side of the bed. I don't hear that much anymore. But, so, typically, like when somebody comes to work, that they're always, whatever it might be, it's nice if they're agreeable all the time, but even if they're like a little rough in the morning, okay, we give them a cup of coffee, they'll come around or whatever. So, but it's stable every day. So you don't have to be agreeable all day long. Everyone's human. But that's the big five right there. It's something you look at a lot more, either in grad school. I mean, not that it's not important now, I'm not saying that, but in grad school, if you look at business or organizational psychology, or if you specialize in leadership and things like that. So, any questions on that?
No. Thank you.
All right. Let me see here. Well, this is just, you see this all the time. I'm sure you've seen it many times before. Maslow's need hierarchy. Now, this has never been empirically tested. It's pretty much accepted. I think it does have validity to it. It has been challenged in the past 15 years or so that it might not be the only way. Looking at the basic biological needs, and then, you know, food and water, and sleep and safety needs, that, you know, you're not going to be hacked or mugged, and then social needs, family, friends, and then ego needs. Okay, now what about myself? And then self-actualization. That's where you get to the point where you're helping other people. But there was one author who just kind of said, in this hierarchy, you know, there are no starving artists. Just to use an example, because there are, but we know there are, because there are many artists who are sort of close to that self-actualization piece, because they're just creating beauty and things like that, but they're not doing well. They're not selling many paintings or whatever have you, sculptures, but they continue to move on. So they're getting by, but their biological needs and safety needs are not completely met. And, Maslow looks at this like a hierarchy, of course, like steps. You have to completely satisfy the biological needs before you can worry about safety needs. And there is some pushback against that right now.
I would switch a few of them around a little bit.
Is that right? Well, let me back up here. Let me hear what you have to say. Go ahead.
Well, I think the ego would probably go before the social need. And I think the self-actuality that should be down there with the basic biological need. I think, you know, last but not least should be ego and social. I think those others are more relevant and prevalent than those two.
Well,
it's not.
Yeah, no, listen, you're certainly entitled to, you know, to look at it that way. There's, like I said, this has never been empirically tested, and there are some who have challenged it now. So your challenge is as good as theirs. I would only caution you that if you're in like a general psych class 101, you know, be careful with that, because you might get a lot of pushback from some of the ones who are really, you know, really Maslow fans. But I think, you know, certainly you're well within your rights to look at it that way. And in all honesty, like I can see the validity of what you said as well. Yeah, some of those like self-actualization, like I use the example of the starving artist. Okay, you know, and look at some of our missionaries. You know, they're going off. I mean, that's another, I think, very good example that I'm sure I didn't come up with. But you know, some people that go on mission trips, I mean, they take the bare minimum.
Yes.
They're not looking out for their basic biological needs. They take, like I said, just a little bit of food, and they're not sure they're going to get water from. And as far as safety goes, some places they go are very unsafe for them. Yet they are more on the, according to that, the way they have it stacked up there, they're more up there because they're trying to bring other people on. So I think your point's very valid.
Maybe we could move it around according to your calling in life.
Sure. You know, like I said, for many, many years, that was just accepted as fact. And like I said, it's only in the past decade or so, thereabouts, that people have kind of challenged that. Typically in your Psych 101 class, it's not going to be challenged. But I mean, I think the two examples I just shared, if you know, well, what about a missionary? You know, what about a starving artist? I think, you know, there's not going to be any kind of, you know, rebuttal for that, if you will.
But like my son is a Philadelphia firefighter, so I would think that would be probably one of his first priorities beyond his basic need to take care of his children.
Right.
That's what he thrives on. That he said, "Mom, that is my calling in life." And I said, "Well, baby, you got to be careful. You know, he's in the army and all this. Like, you're just throwing yourself out there, you know." And he's like, "Well, you know, I just feel like that's my calling." So he puts everything else on the back burner to do that.
Sure. And I mean, I can make the same case for public school teachers in many states.
Yes. Now.
Yeah, sure. Police officers. Yeah, absolutely. That's what's happened, you know, just recently.
Yes.
That really has just happened. It's been going on since, you know, 99 and a few times before that, but it's become so frequent now that it doesn't even make front page news unless it's more than, you know, 7 or 8 people, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, so here I just want to hit on this a little bit, and I won't keep you on here all afternoon. But as a business owner, or I think a nonprofit, at some point you share with me you want to have a nonprofit at some point, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been someone else, but I think you did share that with me. So in essence, that's you're the director, you're the owner. How do you get people in? Well, one of the things is the hiring process. If you have a nonprofit, let's take let's take Goodwill, which is a huge nonprofit organization that is hugely successful. Some people have their issues with it, and as do I. But just for an example, if the mission statement is written with fidelity and written truly, the person who established it has to create a board, because you have to have a board on a nonprofit organization. So one of the things you're going to look for there is people who share your passion or share your mission for helping the disadvantaged, or really the disabled, not so much disadvantaged as Goodwill. So you want to find people who realize that these people have something they can contribute, and you want to give them a purpose in life, so that they give them a place to work. Because in all honesty, most places, especially when they started, we're not hiring disabled workers. Now with the change in attitude and the change in the Americans with Disability Act back in the 90s, we cannot turn someone away because they're disabled. And by and large, they have to be able to do the job, and we can't hire a firefighter who is wheelchair bound. There are certain physical things they have to do, but nonetheless, so if you get a nonprofit such as Goodwill, in the interview process for the board or for the people who are going to manage your stores, you want to get people who share that mission. They may, in fact, themselves be disabled, and I think a certain percentage of the workers and associates for Goodwill, I think, have to be. I'm not sure exactly how that works, so I'm kind of guessing there. So that would make sense, wouldn't it? So if I have a disability, whatever that may be, epilepsy, well, and people are not hiring me, and I go to this place, and obviously I share that passion, I share that mission, because I myself, right? Or I'll give you another example from my personal career. We have at my public school in Broward County, we have what's called a cluster, which is an autism cluster. So this is for kids who have autism. These an autism, some people have autism, you wouldn't even know it. Some, especially kids, they're nonverbal, and they get very frustrated because they can't communicate, and they sometimes bang their heads and throw things out of frustration. They're not bad, they're not mentally incapable. They have a communication disorder, right? So when we hire teachers, we interview teachers for this from time to time, and why do you want to? Why would you choose this over teaching a typical class? And a lot of times they'll say, well, because I have a family member who is disabled, or I have a family member who has autism. So I have a passion for that. So that makes sense. So you want to hire people who share the mission. That's how you hire satisfied employees.
That's funny you should say that, Doc, because I have a patient. I have a 5-year-old autistic boy who is nonverbal. He's legally blind, and he has some other issues. And I have an 18-year-old child. I think I sent you a message.
Sure.
Who has a disability, and that was one of my major reasons for getting into this field of study.
Sure.
And for being employed with children with disabilities. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Yeah. Great points right there. That hits right on the mark. So you know exactly what I'm talking about then. Absolutely. And that has been my experience working with that, and working with the autism cluster specifically. And Broward County has 30,000 employees. I certainly don't know all of them. I know a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Things that happen at other schools as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, also, and I think sometimes these things are overlooked. To increase job satisfaction and increase employee engagement, that's what we're looking for, right? Ultimately, is engagement. It kind of means they take ownership of their position and their company, and talk good about it and things such as that. They don't go on Facebook saying, "I can't stand where I work." That's the try. That's not good. But I like this list that we have here on the PowerPoint. You know, we want to increase opportunities to socialize. And as I said in the beginning of our class live Zoom room here, when I look at job satisfaction, one of the things that when you boil it all down, is relationship. You can't have a relationship if you don't have time to socialize, listen to work together. So you want to have that sort of time to laugh and talk about your family and your hopes and your dreams and the past for that matter. But you want to optimize and increase that as much as you can. And then, you know, hold special events, friendly competitions that just make people laugh. Special event could be something very easy on a, you know, a lot of times people like to do things on a Friday. I'm more about doing it like on a Tuesday or Wednesday because after Friday, people go home and they come back Monday, right? But a Tuesday or Wednesday, break the week a little bit and let's come in the next day saying, oh, yeah, I kind of like it here. So, you know, it could take 5 or 10, 15 minutes after lunch to do, you know, any number of things that would fit your organization. You know, it could be a skipping race, you know, or, you know, just you got to skip, or a quick relay race, or word puzzles, or building things like that. So that, you know, and that really, you know, gets people laughing and things like that. The other thing right here, you know, increase humor. You know, humor is an oftentimes overlooked tool. You know, it's not about laughing and being silly and, you know, being not necessarily drunk with alcohol, but drunk with, you know, silliness. But to appreciate the humor, because where you are in most places, there's a lot of things that get stressful after a while. And you say, you know, there's something funny about that as well. So I can give myself a little chuckle here. You know, surprises are great too. That's, you know, and that's one of the things. I'm going to talk about surprises for a minute. When you want to really go back and increase that engagement, it could be somebody you're trying to sell something to, or you're trying to hire for your organization. You present them with something, you know, not an overwhelming gift, but it's a small gift. It could be a you know, a candy bar, a couple of brownies. It could be a balloon, you know, or you know, it could be something like a office supply, a nice pen, or something along those lines. There's 3 ingredients that help you become a better influencer. One of them is that what you do for this person has to be unexpected, or what it says is a surprise. It has to be genuine. You can't be doing it in a way that tries to manipulate the person. Like, it's just, it doesn't work. Like, I'm hoping you're going to come to work on my team, so I'm going to, you know, I'm going to bribe you. You know, I'm going to pretend like it's just all in good. But it turns out to really have the opposite effect. And people can tell. You can't see what color it is. You can't see how tall it is, but you know it's there, right? You know that. So unexpected has to be, first of all, bottom line has to be genuine. It has to be unexpected. And the third key ingredient, it has to be personalized. So I have a cousin, for example. She's a certain personality. She likes things in order. She likes things neat. Funny enough, for gifts, she likes office supplies of all things. We give her like a nice bag of those binder clips and some Post-it notes. She is happy as she can be. Somebody else will be like, what is this all about? You know, somebody else wants a stuffed animal. So getting to know that person and really what makes them tick, you know, that makes the gift personal. So same thing with motivating employees. You know, you wouldn't do the same thing for every employee, but you might do something for the whole group. You might do something one day and something, you know, the next time you get together. But doing that will really, really increase employee engagement. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna kind of share one more thing, and then I'm gonna give you a chance, and we're gonna go ahead and go. Question, and I post this question so many times. I've probably posted it in this. I can't keep track. I'm sure I've posted it. Imagine anyway, somewhere along the lines in this class. The question comes to mind. We know these things. These are not secrets, right? There are a lot of business people, consultants, authors, writers, you know, way above where I'm at, and I've got advanced degrees in this. I'm not saying all that, but I'm teaching this class, and you know it. Now, you know, you're coming along. So why is it that more companies and more people do not take advantage of this fantastic knowledge? I don't know. That's the question of the day.
Maybe they're too self-absorbed. I think it's about, I don't know. I just think God made me kind of special.
Sure.
People are very self-absorbed. When they look, I think they look through a lens that is very personal, and if it doesn't reap a benefit for them,
Mm-hmm.
then they don't think about it. Like I myself, I was in management for many years, and I find if you empower your employees,
Right.
You'll get a better result. If you are conscientious of like their birthdays and their achievements,
Right.
and you recognize that on a public level, and some things are private on a private level,
Sure.
you will get your employees are more loyal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you treat them as if they're people and not workhorses or office furniture, you would be surprised at how receptive others are. And I just think it's about just inclusivity and collectivism. When you have a business, it's not about just your business, because your business is your employees. If it were not for the work that they presented and completed, then you would not have the success that you had. So I just think people are very selfish minded, especially businesses. And I think the more money that you make, unfortunately, will do that to you. Sometimes people, they look down on you because of their status. I was just reading last night about how you present your furniture, in your room.
Right.
Is it an open policy? Do you have a closed policy?
Right.
I've worked for a couple of managers that were very intimidating just by the way that they had their offices set up.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started taking this course that I can now recognize those things. So now if I entered into an office where somebody had a closed environment, I certainly would open it up for them.
Right. Sure. I bet
They
you would.
may not like it, but I would do it.
That is such an excellent point. Well, actually, many excellent points, Rona. Thank you for sharing. You're right on target with that. And I think that what you said about why people don't do it, I think that is at least part of the answer. I don't know that's the full answer. I think there's a lack of faith. I think there is a lack of trust. I think there is a pride. A lot of things boil down to pride and selfishness, wanting it to do their way. The interesting thing that through my many years of lots of reading and my experiences and listening to others who have been in management for many years as well, and putting that all together, all these business ideas, and we've talked about this in this course. The good business practices really, the practices themselves are actually scriptural. You can find a lot of this in Proverbs.
Yes.
You can find a lot of this trust in Ecclesiastes as well. Like, a lot of these things, about working hard, about, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might and with all your soul, and work as if you're working for God and not for man. If all those things were adhered to, we would be flying. Every organization would just be so fantastic.
It's funny you say that, Doc. It's funny you say that, because I tell my 18-year-old, a man that don't work, don't eat it.
Right, that's right. That's right. And I put that somewhere. I just had to look up. I know it's there, and I had to look up where exactly it was. So I'm not sure who I responded to in this class or no.
It's in Proverbs.
Proverbs. So I had to find. I said, yeah, he does. Man who doesn't work doesn't eat. So yeah, absolutely. So thanks very much for sharing that. Thanks for sharing the money there. All right, so I want to share before I forget, because a lot of times I log off and I forget. So the Bible verse this week. Now you're already going to, obviously, for point wise, you got your points because you're here. And beyond points, I appreciate you. But for others who tune in and watch the recording, the Bible verse that we're going to go with is Ecclesiastes 3:9. So I'm not going to quote what that is. I looked it up here in the Bible, but I wanted to find out exactly what that was. But look up Ecclesiastes 3:9, chapter 3, verse 9, and share that in the course room. And for those of you who get this on recording, and you will certainly get your points for being on the Zoom room. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up, Roy, unless you got something else.
Thank you. It's just a blessing to be able to be here today. I enjoy being here personally than watching the videos later. So I'm blessed today. Thank you.
Oh, as am I. I like to have so much better. I think it's better to watch too. So your classmates will also benefit from this give and take a little bit without watching me drone on and on and on. So a quick word of prayer. We're going to go ahead and go. Father in heaven, thank you so much for Rona. I'm so grateful that she's here with me, and grateful that I get a chance to work with her again. I think it was one of the first classes I taught at Central Christian College a couple of years ago that Rona was a student. I'm thankful that we're able to connect again. I pray for her as she continues her studies, as she pursues your will in her life, and for all the students, Father, I pray. For each student in this class and all my students in all the classes and schools. I pray that you'll watch over them, bless them in a mighty way, keep them safe, guide their footsteps, give them discernment, give them energy and focus to do what they need to do. And I also pray, Father, a special prayer for their families who are supporting them in this journey, that you will bless the entire household, that your will be done. All this I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
You know what? When I saw that I was going to have you as a professor, I got excited. I said, I had him before. I had him before.
That's wonderful. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Ron. God bless you. I'll talk to you.
God bless. Have a great one.
All right.